think that there isn't a single more important issue in South Africa, on this continent, and in the world than the threat of inequality. In South Africa, there's been, which is in the midst of a fantastic democratic transition, and incredible achievements have been made in 2015 compared to 1994. The inclusion of the vast majority of people in our society, the emergence, if you like, or the doubling of enrollment in higher education, the growth of the South African economy phenomenally for 20 years. Some fantastic achievements have been made in the last 20 years. But if there is an Achilles heel of our transition, it's inequality. Inequality has increased every single year for 21 years. And it has become the singular biggest challenge of compromising the South African transition. The enormous prospects of our constitution and the vision encapsulated in our Freedom Charter is really effectively threatened by inequality in our society.
First of all, regarding income inequality, the data we have is not perfect, and I will show you some figures in a minute, but what we have suggests that we really have an extremely high level of inequality in South Africa by international and historical standards. That's very much related, of course, to the legacy of the apartheid. Just to stress one number, which I will show you more in a minute with this graph, the top 10% income share, which is the share of total income going to the top 10% income holders, seems to be of the order of 60 to 65% according to the most recent income tax data in South Africa, as compared to 30-35 in European countries, 45-50 in the US, and 55-60 in Brazil. So the data we have, again, is imperfect, but we do our best to make it comparable between countries, and if we take it seriously, the level observed in South Africa is just higher than what we have everywhere else. And so that's a very serious issue which we need to address and understand. Regarding wealth inequality, well, it's probably very high as well, given the level of income inequality. So income is the sum of labor income and capital income. So part of the high income inequality comes from the very high capital income and flow of rent and profits and dividends and interest derived from wealth. But we don't have direct data on wealth for South Africa. So it's in fact, it's probably very high as well, but we know in fact very little about wealth inequality in South Africa, which I think is a big problem in itself. And that's due to the fact that there's very little, or in fact, as far as I know, no access to estate tax data in recent decades in South Africa. We have some data for the earlier period, which is far from perfect, but which at least exists, but for the recent decades, there's no access to estate tax data. So there's a lot of discussion right now about estate duty reform in the country, which is very interesting, but I think access to data is very important, because if we want to talk about the evolution of wealth concentration in South Africa and see how different policies since the end of the apartheid have influenced the dynamics of wealth, you want to have data, otherwise anybody can say anything, and this leads to an extreme viewpoint, and so I think it's a real problem. Now, even if we had access to estate tax data, it would not be, I think, enough, because so estate tax is a transmission of wealth at the time of death, so it's good to have information on the wealth of the deceased, of the dead, but it would be even better to have information on the wealth of the living. And so I think there's no annual wealth tax in South Africa, which is one of the reasons also why there is very limited information on wealth. So my general conclusion on this is that I think, like other countries, but probably even more than other countries, given the legacy with very high inequality in South Africa, the country needs more transparency about income and wealth dynamics. And I think introducing a progressive tax on wealth, even if it comes with very low tax rate to begin with, will be a powerful way to produce more information and then to adapt the tax rate and the policy to whatever we see. But first of all, the main objective would be to be able to say how the different wealth groups benefit from growth and to be able to better know the distribution of the gains from development and growth. And probably also this could be a useful tool to try to redistribute or at least limit concentration of wealth. Black economic empowerment policies based upon voluntary market transaction at market prices that have been implemented in South Africa in the past 20 years. From the data we have, even though the data is imperfect, but this suggests that they are probably not enough to limit the inequality coming from the past. Progressive wealth tax, it's a little bit like the equivalent of a permanent land reform, except that you do it gradually, year after year. You sort of, in a way, you're asking people who have accumulated a lot of wealth to return a small fraction of their wealth to the community each year. So ideally, it's a peaceful and orderly manner to limit the concentration, the extreme concentration of wealth at the upper level. Let me simply say that if we take a very broad historical perspective, you observe countries that do implement different forms of redistribution of property or wealth, both in Europe and in Asia. For instance, land reform, and when I mean land reform, I mean more than voluntary market transaction. I mean direct redistribution of land property to people who don't have land from people who have a lot of land. You see that in many countries throughout history, and very often it was part of the successful development package in this country. So in Asia, you see that in Korea, in Taiwan, in Japan, in China in the 1950s, and this is what part of what made this country more equal, which in the end was good for the success of the development strategy as well. So in Europe, it's more through the welfare state, progressive taxation, and also the very violent redistribution due to World War I and World War II, which is certainly not an example to follow. But this is the way wealth inequality was reduced historically to the very high, from the very high level of the 19th century to the much more moderate level of 1950, and which are still with us today. So in the case of South Africa, this did not happen. The land reform institution of wealth did not really happen, and I think this is clearly an issue for the future.